Hey guys, my name is Ali and I'm a data analytics manager working in Oslo, Norway. In this video, we're going to start off my series where I look at SQL queries for data analysts. We're going to look at the infamous select statement in combination with a top clause or a where clause, or both if you want to use them at the same time. We're going to look at the select statement, just the basic version of it, and then we will start to add a top clause, a where clause, and I'm going to talk about when you might want to use the different combinations for what it is that you're trying to achieve. That's enough of an introduction. Let's jump onto my laptop and we can see how we can use these queries and look at some examples. Before I start, if you want to know how you can set up a SQL Server Management Studio and you can add some of these databases that you can see here on the left side, because I have a couple different ones that I use for practice or these videos that I make. I have AdventureWorks, I have something called Contoso. Check out the description. I'm going to link to a video where I set up the entire environment, and I'm also going to link to the Contoso Retail Data Warehouse example database so you can install that the same way that I do. I believe in that video I show you guys how to install AdventureWorks. It's the same process for the Contoso database. You can take a look there, and that will show you that process. Now let's jump on to the different types of statements. Now, as I said, today we are going to look at the select statement from a table. So I'm going to try something new today. I'm going to try and zoom in and show you guys stuff as I go. But what you see here, and basically the select statement is something you use to retrieve data from a table, which is inside a excuse me, a database. So if you look at this, you can see we have select, and then we have where does it come from. So you can see it says from Contoso Retail DW, which is the database instance. Then you have the DWO, which is the schema name, and then you have the dim customer, which is the table. Now, the star in a select statement means that it basically says, give me everything back. I want all the rows, I want all the columns. Now, you want to be a little bit careful with using the star, because what you are doing then is you're basically saying, give me everything, without really knowing what it is that you're going to get back, because you're saying, give me everything. Now, what's happening is that when you are, this is on my laptop right now, I'm querying this on my laptop. There's nothing dangerous there, it's on my laptop, it's in my system, I'm the only one using it. When you're out there in the real world, the database you might be querying, if you are allowed to at all to query a database directly, which you very often are not, but if you do that and you do a select star and it is a big table, you can really kick off some processes that can eat a lot of resources. And one thing is, if it is a on-premise physical database, it's going to kick off the resources. But if it is a database which is hosted in the cloud, then that database might be set up so that your company isn't actually paying for the hardware, they are paying for the processing of that database instance. So if you kick off a select star on a very, very large table, you can kick off a major processing cost. So be a little bit careful with the select star, and to be honest, you should never, as a data analyst or someone who works with data, use, how can I say this, methods where you're saying give me everything, because you want to be specific about what you do. But if you look at the result from this, just to show you guys what is the result, you can see here that on the bottom here, I have gotten every single column from the customer table, the dim customer table, and you can also look down right, you can see that it has given me all the different rows in the customer table. So that's fine. So that is just the select statement from where you are getting it. So you're basically saying select whatever you have from instance name, then the schema name, then the table name. That is what this name here consists of. Now, the right way to do this, if you want to get everything from a table, is to be a little bit more specific. So let's see what this would look like if you were more specific than the select star. So if we jump to the next query, I'm just going to go one as we go. You will see here, this is going to return the same thing, but you have specifically named which columns it is that you want. So you have been specific. You've said, I want these columns from the same thing, let me see if I can do this. There we are, same instance, except you have named all of the different columns. Now, the advantage of that is that now you know what you have selected. So if you want to, if If you want to just look at some columns, then you can, in the select statement, you can comment in and out columns, and I'll show you guys that later, but it's the same purpose of the select statement. Right now we are using the select statement to look at a table, give me back what you want, or what I want, and show me the result of that without using any filters or really, how can I say this, restricting myself from what I want as a result. And that is something that you might do in a phase where you're just exploring data. You're just trying to take a look at what does the data look like, what are in these different columns here on the bottom. That is just what I'm trying to see. Okay, what are, you can see the title has a lot of null values. Probably doesn't really give me that much. There's no point keeping that. There's some keys, first name, middle name, not always filled out. Do I want to include that? Suffix has a lot of null values. You can take a look at the columns before you decide what you want to use with it for analysis purposes. But then you want to ask yourself, do you really need to pull 18,869 rows to get an impression of what the data looks like? No, you don't. That is where the top statement and the where clause comes into the picture. But we will move as we go, and then I will talk about how you can use the select from statement in different scenarios. But right now we are still in the sphere where we are thinking about looking at data. So we are querying a database with the select statement from a table, and we are just getting information back just to look at it. That is what the purpose of it is so far. We go to the next statement. You can see this is the exact same statement, where here I have done something else. I have commented out some columns. So now I might have been at a place where I'm thinking to myself, I've looked at the different columns. I have said I don't need, I'll comment total children in, so it'll show between email address and date first purchase, which is right here. So if I then select everything, I execute it, you can see the column came back. If I comment it out, then then it goes away. So now if we think about where we are in terms of analysis purposes, now we might be at a place where you're using select statement, you're combining it with commenting out data that you might have figured out that you don't need. You're only selecting the columns that you want. But once again, we are still returning 18,869 rows. You might not even want to return everything, but like I said, we're gonna start filtering stuff out, but you're still using the select statement. And now we have gone a little bit from looking at data, using the select from statement, to look at data, to start to actually select only the data we want. So now if you think in terms of a data analysis purposes, the select statements in the beginning, which said give me the specific columns, that was more just to look at what we have. Now we have looked at what we have commented out some stuff because we are starting to think about what it is that we need for actual analysis purposes. Now, let me see. Now, what you might want to do though is in this one, you can see that it is still a select statement, but now I'm starting to add a clause to it. And I'm adding a top clause. Now, the number that you put into parentheses is going to decide how many rows are you going to get back from the different columns that you have selected. So you can see we have the different columns. If you look down right, we have 25 rows. So now you said I figured out which columns I need. I only need 25 rows because I just want to look at that. The same way you could have at the beginning, when you're doing a select star statement, if you add the top 100 on that and then you do it, at least you are controlling how many rows you are returning. So you're not going to get everything. That is it's an okay way to say give me everything from this table, but make sure I don't take too much, because I won't kick off too much processing power, and B, I won't kick off any costs if this is a cloud-based instance. So that is one thing you can do at the beginning, just to figure out what does the different columns look like, what are in the different columns, what do I actually need to take with me further down the line if I want to do analysis on it. So the top 25 will filter how many rows you get back. That's what that does. Now, I also spoke about a different type of clause to filter back what you get. Let me see if I can find the right statement. That is the statement number 8. And that is the where clause. And the where clause is quite simple. You say where some sort of column equals something. So let me see, let me go back. Let me show it this way. Oh, not email. There. So you can see I have this gender column, and I only want to return rows where gender equals m. Now the difference between the top statement is it says, you know, give me X amount of rows. This is also going to filter what you get back, but it's going to filter it based on something which you define, where gender equals m. So if you then look down here, you can see in the gender column, now we're only getting the m back. The males is what this is returning now. Also notice that I have 2 single quotes around the m because it is text. Also good to know about, so if it was a numeric column, it needed equal single column, I don't even know what it's called. Yeah, you get what I mean, the single signs. And you wrap that around the number, it's going to interpret it as text. But this is also a different way of getting a result back, because if you look now, I have commented out the top 25. I've said select these different columns that are not commented out. I only want the gender, which equals m, and on the down right side you can see it gives me 9,351 rows. So I know in my customer database for these columns there are 9,351 rows. So you comment out columns in your select statement to remove which columns you return, and you add a where clause on what rows you want to return, and you add the top clause on how many rows you want to return. So it depends where you are in the process. If you're just trying to see what is there without even knowing what you want to filter on which columns, you can use the top clause and you can take a look. If you know that you're looking for only the males, then add a where clause and only the m, and then you will only get the males back, and you can look at those columns. If you know exactly which columns you want back, then you can comment out the ones you don't need, and then you can only return those. These are different ways where you can use some clauses together with the select statement, depending on what it is that you're trying to do. You know, you might be looking at data, just trying to understand it, you know, and just see what does this table contain. You might be adding a where clause because you know exactly what you're going to perform analysis on by now. So you add that clause so you don't have to take out any more data than you need to. You know exactly what you get. You're being specific in your purpose. And another thing you can do is if we open one of the views. Now, if you don't know what a view is, that is basically a combination of, it's a combination of usually numbers from fact tables, numbers that contains figures, and categories from dimension tables, which you can use to kind of create a view to perform analysis. Now you will see, once again, here we have, I can't show you guys the whole thing, but here we have a select statement just as before, but what's a little bit different now is we are selecting with a purpose of doing, you can see we're doing a lot of different, we're doing some renaming, we are using a case statement, we are using another case statement, some renaming, then we are doing some joins. So this is also a select statement where you can use a where clause if you want to, you can use a top if you want to. You wouldn't really use a top here, to be honest, when I think about it, but you could use a where clause if you want to only perform some logic on a subset of your data. But this is another select statement, but what I showed you previously is how you can use a select statement from a table with a top or a where clause when you're trying to explore data, when you are creating a view, and I think I'll come back to this view later. Then you will add logic on the different types of columns to have some sort of result so that you can actually use that view for analysis purposes. So there's 2 different ways of how you can use the select from, depending on what it is that you're trying to do and where you are in the analysis process and how you use SQL, the SQL select statement from there. And as you can see, it's used more or less every single time you use it because that's what you use to define what you need for whatever purpose it is that you're trying to do. Now, for the sake of it, I can show you guys what this view looks like. So let's just select the top 1,000 rows. You can see there's some products. There are, something from regions, age. So we have different types of dimensions here, different types of columns from tables on the left side, and we also have some metrics. So we are combining facts, calculations with both. We have. Let me see if I can tag some stuff for you guys just to show you guys. We have some facts. We have dimension from time. We have customer. We have, this could be customer, and we also have product. We are combining information from a lot of different sources, which is why it becomes a view. And what I showed you guys before is how the select statement plays into that. But now we have moved from looking at data, from previewing it, from selecting exactly what we want, to also now select it and add on some logic from different tables, which are a bunch of different tables that are actually joined together to become a view. Ending off, I do want to point one thing out, and that is, in a lot of companies, you will not be allowed to query databases as directly as I am doing here. But what is good to know or to understand is these different types of queries or statements, because it might actually help you when you're trying to communicate with someone what you need from a database. And this is also why I think it's very useful to know what is a dimension table, what is a fact table, because you are often selecting from these different tables, filtering it down and combining it either into a view or somewhere else, depending on your purpose and where you are in the analysis process and what you're doing. In terms of, are you looking at data? Are you trying to clean it? Are you trying to combine it? No matter what you're doing, you will be using the select statement from somewhere, and maybe a top clause if you want to preview something, maybe a where clause if you want to filter it down to exactly what you need before you start to combine it into something. So those were my thoughts on how you can use the select from statement with a top clause or a where clause to either filter down when you are previewing it, or when you are filtering down because you want to use it for some other purpose later. This is the first SQL video that I had made. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the format. I tried to make it quite practical, because I know that the select statement is a fairly simple statement, but depending on what you're trying to do, you will be using it very different ways. And it's just good to kind of see it used in different parts of the process as you're doing data analysis, because of course, as you guys know, part of the process is to look at the data, figure out what you want, then you gotta select it, you gotta do stuff with it before you can actually perform some analysis on it in a visualization tool, or actually in SQL if that is where you want to do the data analysis. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you guys want to follow this series or you want to see more videos on data and analytics, then subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.